Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. In the same vein of inflation, why do things get more expensive? I would argue that one of the reasons that things get more expensive is because of unneeded regulation and frivolous lawsuits. So I got this notice, and to be clear, I like that there's an EPA. I like that there's some regulation that companies just can't dump a bunch of sludge into the ocean. I remember being where was I surfing? I was surfing in, I think it was Huntington Beach one time. I think it was Huntington Beach. And we were off the coast, and then all of a sudden there was this putrid smell in the ocean. And everybody on the beach got out of the water, went up to the showers, washed off ourselves and our surfboard, and there was this weird, disgusting, slimy film. And it turned out that like some sewage pipe from one of the municipalities had burst and just dumped a ton of quasi-treated chemicals and sewage into the ocean. It was disgusting. It made me kind of sick to my stomach for a couple of days. Not physically sick, but just the thought of like surfing through sewage kind of made my stomach turn. So I'm glad that there's regulations, some regulations. But I think sometimes that pendulum swings too far, right? And the regulations create a lot of additional business expenses that don't really need to exist. Another thing that I think creates a lot of additional business expenses that don't need to exist is frivolous class action lawsuits. So I use Zoom a lot. Shout out to Chris DeRosa, who got me on Zoom about 7 years ago before it was cool. So we've been using Zoom for a long time for office meetings, for client meetings, for coaching sessions. And I've been a big fan of their platform. I've been a big fan of their customer service response. I've been a big fan of like their full disclosure about what they do well and what they don't do well and what they've been working on. And at the end of the day, guys, we all know if you're putting anything out there on the internet, there's a chance that it's not private. Like, that's just the end. I don't care if somebody claims to have end-to-end encryption. I don't care if you think it's private. I don't care if you tag that Facebook post and put it where it's only for your friends or only for you to see. It doesn't matter. Glitches happen. Mistakes happen. Technology is moving so fast, we can't expect them to think of everything up front or fix everything immediately. And this stuff is kind of like you're building the plane on the flight over the ocean, right? So Zoom, apparently, because I've been a user for so long, I got this notification of class action. If you've used Zoom in the last 7 years, 6 years, or was it 4 years, from March of 2016 to July of 2021. So if you've used this over the last 5 years, you may be entitled to compensation, blah, 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 blah. So it turns out, and by the way, we can just look up the case number here. So case number, here we go. Always go to the source document if you can. Here we go. Zoom meeting class action settlement. Let's see what they're accused of. This is just recitals. It says who sued who did what, whereas. Okay, here we go. Whereas the action arises from 4 central theories of alleged misconduct or conduct by Zoom, which obviously if they won the class action lawsuit and there's a bunch of money now being paid out to people that use Zoom, then it was misconduct. Alleged unauthorized sharing of users' information with third parties through incorporation of software development kits. Alleged unauthorized sharing of users' information with third parties through third-party developers. Alleged failure to prevent unwanted meeting disruptions by third parties, and alleged misrepresentations of Zoom providing end-to-end encryption. I happen to know exactly what this is because we've dealt with problems with Zoom since the beginning, because like I said, they're constantly fixing things on the fly. And one of the things that Zoom lets you do as a service, huge benefit add, I've used it in a big, big way in my business. You can go live on Zoom, and then there's a couple plugins where you can go live on Zoom in Facebook. You can go live in Zoom on YouTube. You can go live on Zoom here. You can plug in different third parties when you use Zoom through some of these third-party development kits. And I remember you used to just be able to do it, click, 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 click. And then at some point about a year or 2 years ago, this thing popped up where even though I was the meeting organizer, even though I was the one that clicked broadcast this live on Facebook, you have to now click this new button that says, please acknowledge that you're going live on Facebook. It's like, duh, it's my account linked to my Facebook. I'm the one talking, and I'm the one who clearly clicked go live on Facebook. So I'm sure that not having that little pop-up that says, hey, by the way, you're on Zoom voluntarily on your account, linking it to your Facebook to go live, because they weren't telling me that I was going live on Facebook. that's probably unauthorized sharing of information with third parties, right? Or maybe when I logged into Zoom and it says, would you like to sign in on Facebook? And then you sign on Facebook. And then when you do that, if you read the terms and service of any company, what they're really doing is they're getting access to your entire Facebook friends list. So then they can retarget those people and advertise to them. This is all known shit. This is all shit that every developer does, right? And then this other argument, alleged failure to prevent unwanted meeting disruptions. We know what this was too. People would like photobomb your Zoom meeting. So some asshole would sit there on Zoom and just type in join meeting 123-67943, join meeting 9243. And once in a while, he would get a hit, somebody who was actually on Zoom, and he would accidentally guess their number, or he would have the meeting number from somebody else. He would pop onto the screen and he'd be, mooning people or giving them a little picture of his junk or something like that. Horrible, annoying, but, not the end of the world. Didn't ruin my life. We had it happen one time where we were on a meeting. We usually use the same meeting ID for our coaching group. And somebody, I don't know if it was a disgruntled client or friend of a friend or somebody that just wanted to mess with us. They jumped on the meeting and showed us their butt. And I had to click them off and delete them from the room and then not allow them to come on. These are just kind of the costs of doing business with an open platform. You can use Zoom for free. I pay for it because I want kind of all the upgraded features, but it's like, come on, guys. This is technology. We know this stuff happens. We know that when you're interfacing with multiple platforms, every company is going to get it wrong somewhere. Like, oh, hey, did Scott authorize on the Facebook side or the Apple side to give us the credentials for Zoom to talk to this? We all know nothing's private. We all know if you use an iPhone or a Google phone, they're tracking you, they're looking at your pictures, they're stealing your information so Facebook and Instagram can advertise to you more aggressively. Like the need for this class action lawsuit, I'm guessing, obviously it didn't go to trial because they settled. That's why everything says alleged. I'm guessing it's all just bullshit. But a bunch of corporate lawyers got together. It only takes 2 people to sign on to start a class action lawsuit. At least that's the case in California. And then, they sue Zoom. They tell them they're going to drag them through court, drag their name through the mud, or it's like the mob. Just give us a couple $1,000,000. We'll distribute it to anybody that was on Zoom. And I think I looked it up. I didn't fill out the whole thing. It's like they're going to give me $11, right? So for me being so wronged that my information was shared with an unauthorized third party, or that I was so tragically mentally destroyed that somebody mooned me and showed me their butt on an unauthorized third-party addition to a Zoom meeting, I'm due $11. And I'm sure the law firm that's handling this, whoever it is, I'm sure they're making millions and millions of dollars. It's just gross, right? And what does that mean to us as the consumer? It just means, surprise, surprise, Zoom's going to raise their prices by a couple bucks in order to compensate themselves for this lawsuit. It's just silly. I think what do they call these? Trial attorneys that are just constantly trying to find nitpicky stuff that they can sue for. And like in California, it runs rampant in the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, where it's like, you have to have a mirror this tall and this ramp and blah, 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 blah. And there's just lawyers that will go around, not disabled, and try to find these little variances where it's like, well, the city said the sidewalk had to be at this slope, but then the state said this, but then your ramp wasn't correctly here. And it's like, all right, well, can a wheelchair go up and down into Wendy's? Yeah, sure, it can go into Wendy's. Cool, why do we have a problem? It's like, well, you were off by 2 inches, and that could prevent somebody with a wheelchair with this handicap from getting into Wendy's, and so we're going to shake you down for money. This happens all the time. And this is just like a bigger, worse version of that. And it grosses me out, and it's one of the reasons things get so expensive. So, anyway.
Disneyland got sued for not having park maps that were accessible for blind people.
Wait, okay. We have to fact check this. Wait.
I could bring it up. They now have like ones that you can touch and have like raised bumps on them.
All right. Tell me the whole story. So for those of you who don't know, Chris is a huge enthusiast of roller coasters and theme parks. You ever want to know anything about a theme park? Let's just try this. We'll fact check him too. Hey, Chris, when did the roller coaster Viper at Magic Mountain come out?
91.
We gotta look. Okay. Release Viper roller coaster Magic Mountain. I'm gonna laugh my ass off if you're right. He's shaking his head over here. He's like, I know I'm right. The coaster guy. All right. Where would I find
RCDB.com.
RCDB.
RCDB.
RCDB.com. What is this, by the way? Oh, this is a roller coaster database. Interesting. All right, let's look up Viper. Viper, Six Flags, Magic Mountain, Valencia, California. Haha. All right, where's Viper? Oh, you're 1 year off. 4/7/1990. I can't even believe you got in the right decade. But you let me down, Chris, but I still love you. All right, so tell us more about this Disney story. That's on you, Chris.
Article says in September 2010, 3 visually impaired women who have been long patrons of the Walt Disney Company's theme parks and websites filed a class action against 2 Walt Disney companies, alleging that their websites referring to their theme parks, hotels, and restaurants are inaccessible to the visually impaired. But then, okay, so that's for the websites. It continues about the park maps somewhere.
So they sued because the park maps and the website were not easily accessible to blind people?
Yeah. And the accessibility to the blind on websites was a huge thing. Most web providers have fixed that now and just kind of build it into whatever you're building.
And look, guys, to be clear, I want blind people to have a great life. Blind people want to go to Disneyland and ride the rides. That's awesome. But I'm going to take a wild guess that if you're blind, just wild guess, you're not driving to Disneyland, getting out, going up, buying a ticket, walking through the park, finding your way to Space Mountain, and then riding Space Mountain, and then leaving the park and getting home. I'm just guessing no blind person on their own in the history of the world has ever accomplished that. So I think it probably goes without saying that if you're going to an amusement park and you're blind, you probably have a guide, or the theme park probably provides a docent to help you get through the park. Who the fuck cares if the theme park maps are in Braille? Like, that just doesn't make a lick of sense. I can't think of a worse place to go being blind than Disneyland, and not because it wouldn't be a rush to ride the rides, because I've rode all the rides in Disneyland with my eyes closed, but it would be miserable walking around there with the number of people and the lines and trying to find your way. So how silly. Yeah, this shit's just silly.
Yeah, I'm looking more at it.
I'm
looking more at it, and it's mostly that they were mad that Disney refused to provide Braille menus, schedules, maps, and more.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how about this? Any blind person out there listening to podcasts who wants to go to Disneyland, Chris will be your docent. I will pay for his ticket, and he will walk you around Disneyland, and you guys can ride all the rides together. Much easier solution than a class action lawsuit against Disney and having them have to reprint everything in the park to be Braille friendly. Just silly.